Greetings to you all. Today's teaching I've titled Garden of Eden, and it comes in two parts for now. There's part one, where we are going to consider Genesis chapter 2, verses 10 to 14, from its most obvious import, which is basically the physical aspect of it, and what it means for the natural side of man. And then we will quickly move from there and move into the more spiritual side of the same scripture. And the emphasis really is to push for the whole, or to try and embellish the whole idea of the importance of obedience in God's kingdom, the utmost importance of obedience. So in Genesis 2, verses 10 to 14, it talks about a river flowed through Eden and watered the garden. And from there it branched into four riverheads. The first one was Pishon, and then the second one was Gihon, and then we have the third one as Tigris, and the fourth one as Euphrates. If we're to look at this from the vantage point of present-day Israel, I would have thought that the fourth riverhead, which is Euphrates, should actually be third, and Tigris the fourth one. And if we look at it from the east, obviously the whole thing will be reversed. It will start off being with Tigris and then Euphrates. But that's not really what I want to focus on. But just to point out that there are some translations which refer to the third river, which is assumed to be Tigris, as Hedikel, and the other one as an unknown river. No, yes, the third river, the Tigris, is put in other translations like the Good News translation. No, the Geneva Bible translation and the Young's Literal translation as Hedikel, which is Tigris, Euphrates. But I don't know. That's not really important. But I just wanted to point out at this point in time that this garden, this Eden, was a vast real estate, and it comes up again in Revelation. Is it 22, 21? As this vast estate, which is 1,500 miles wide and 1,500 miles long, which is basically a cube, which would take it from where present-day Israel is right to the Tigris and Euphrates rivers. It's a vast estate, and from that point of view, whether they get the names of the rivers correct or not is neither here nor there. But it's a vast estate, and because Jerusalem has to be where Jerusalem is, that's where the New Jerusalem is going to be. But anyway, basically, this is what we are going to consider, where Garden of Eden is. And we know that in Genesis 1:31, where after God had made everything, he looked at everything he had made, and it was it was exceedingly good. Evening passed and morning came. This was the sixth day, and God saw that everything he had made, and behold, it was very good, suitable and pleasant, and he approved and validated it completely. And there was evening and there was morning. That's the Amplified translation. In Genesis 2, verses 1 to 3 says, "So the sky, the earth, and all that filled them were finished. By the seventh day, God finished the work that he had been doing, so he rested. So God blessed the seventh day and made it a holy day, consecrated it, set it apart, because on that day he rested from all the work that he had done in creating the world." But we all know that judging from how he's dealing with us human beings because we are so disobedient. There's a joke that he is not rested. He's really trying to get us back on track, and it's more than a full-time job. That aside, then in Genesis 2, chapter 2, verses 7 to 9, it says, Then the Lord took dust from the ground and formed a man from it. And then he breathed the breath of life into the man's nose, and the man became a living person, or became a living soul, as some translations put it. In 8, it says, And then the Lord planted the man in the east, in a place called Eden. I think he is now talking about, but there is a general idea that Eden is the vaster part, and the garden was a smaller portion where Adam and Havilah were living. It didn't encompass the whole thing. Anyway, so we know that the Garden of Eden was, he was placed in the east of the Garden of Eden, of Eden, which was a garden that's especially arranged for him. And it says that the word actually means luxurious, and he put man there. And then in 9 it says, And then the Lord caused every beautiful, desirous tree and every tree that was good for food to grow out of the ground in the middle of the garden. That is the smaller part where Adam lived. God put a tree that gives life and also a tree that gives the knowledge of good and evil. In Genesis 2:15 to 17, it says, Then God put Adam in the garden. And then he told him that you may eat the fruit from any tree, but you must not eat the fruit from the tree which gives the knowledge of good and evil. If you eat fruit from that tree, you will certainly die. So now, talking about, focusing on verse 15 to 15, it says, the Amplified Version says, he was put in the garden and then he was settled and then he was told to cultivate and keep it. In the Classic Translation, it says to tend and guard and keep it. The KJV says to dress it and keep it. The New Living Translation puts it to tend and watch over it. Now, these concepts can apply to a physical garden as well as a spiritual one. But for now, for the moment, we want to focus basically on the physical side of things. So I was told he was put in the garden, told to keep it and to guard it and to cultivate it and tend to it. And so the Garden of Eden, which was in the east of Eden, was Adam's abode and a separate plot of ground, fenced off, enclosed park adjoining, or rather a subset of the whole, much smaller subset of the entire Eden real estate, and planted with trees and herbs that were choicer kind. They were more luxurious, more pleasing and pleasant to the eye and to everything. They were pleasing. They appealed to him more greatly. It was like his little park. And more fit for food and more beautiful in foliage and blossom than elsewhere. In Genesis 2:22-24, it says, And the Lord God said, Humans, you have become like us. That's after they fell. And you now know good and evil. You must keep them. So he decided that you must keep him from putting forth his hand and taking and eating some of the fruit from the tree of life, because he ate other fruit, but of the tree that he ought to have eaten from, which was a fruit of the tree of life, he didn't. He was more attracted, or Eve was more attracted to the tree of good and evil. So God expelled Adam from the garden. Actually, he had to forcefully evict him he was reluctant to leave. And then he put cherubims there to guard the eastern border and make sure that no one got into it, lest in his fallen state he eats of the tree and he lives forever in his fallen nature, and then God would not be able to save him. So God had made every tree pleasant to the sight. Eden signified delight and pleasure. Wherever it was, it had all desirable conveniences. It was just a pleasant piece of garden, which gave him peace and without any inconvenience. And it was adorned with every tree pleasant to the sight, enriched and yielding fruit plentifully, pleasant to the taste and good for food. As Genesis 3:6 says, as talking about the temptation of Eve, but adapted to because they were there for some time. So Eve would see the trees, saw the trees, they were beautiful, pleasing to the eyes, that the trees were good to eat for food, but minus the other bit which says that they're good to make her wise. No, initially that was not the case. So they ate freely. So when providence puts us in a place of plenty, abundance, and luxury, we ought to serve God with a grateful heart. Psalm 145, 1-3 puts it this way: in praising God for all the abundance and all the gifts and the lavishness that he treats us with. He says, I praise your greatness and I exalt you, my God, the King. I will praise you, your name forever and ever. I will bless you every day. I'll praise you, your name forever and ever. The Lord is great and worthy of our praise, greatly to be praised. No one can understand how great he is. There is no searching out or limit to his greatness. So the word paradise, this is the other word that is used for Eden, is usually applied to the garden, the abode of Adam and Hava, before their fall. And then when they fell, they were evicted from the garden. And the New Jerusalem, which comes out of heaven in Revelation 22, or was it 21, is the ultimate abode of the just people, the martyrs and the righteous and the holy people of God. It's also referred to as paradise. And there are a number of scriptures that attest to this. In Luke 23:43 says, when Jesus was on the cross and one criminal said that you are the Son of God, and Jesus said to him, I tell you the truth, today you will be with me in paradise, which is heaven. In Revelation 2:7, it talks about every person. 2:7 says, every person who has ears should listen and hear what the Spirit says to the churches. To those who win the victory, I will give the right to eat of the fruit from the tree of life, which is in the garden, which is paradise in heaven. But then we know that paradise is coming down to earth, which is the Revelation 22. In Corinthians, this is Paul talking. It says, and I know of a man, he says, snatched away, probably talking about himself, to paradise, another name for heaven, was snatched away to heaven. So that's another name for heaven. But then we know that heaven is coming down to earth. So even in the Garden of Paradise, man was destined to work. Even in Paradise, Garden of Eden, man had to work. None of us were sent into the world to be idle. His stay on earth was to be attended with pleasant toil and spiritual labor. But after Adam's fall, he was presented with fatigue and spiritual trouble, with sorrow and sweat. And this we can glean from Genesis chapter 3, verses 17 to 19, talking about the curse that he pronounced on Adam after he fell. Then God said to the man Adam, you listened to what your wife said to you, and you ate the fruit of the tree which I had commanded you not to eat. So I'm going to put a curse on the ground, and you'll have to work very hard and toil and labor. It's going to be a difficult life for you to get food out of the ground. In pain you will eat its fruit all the days of your life. The ground will produce thorns and weeds, thistles for you, and you will have to eat the plants, and you'll have to eat the plants of the field. In other words, you are not going to have a garden where the things are just growing for you. All you have to do is just go and pick up fruit and eat. You're going to have to toil for it. And you sweat and you work hard for your food. Later you will return to the ground from where you were taken. You are dust, and when you die, you will return to the dust. That was a curse that was put on the ground. This curse is because of he was disobedient, and also I think it was also that he should not forget that he was a fallen man. You cannot commit a sin and then be left for life to continue as it was before. Otherwise, you would think that there's nothing to the sin that you committed. Now, this scripture here, whilst it's talking about the natural consequences of a hard life, hard ground, pestilences and wild animals eating and no rain and drought and so forth, it also talks about the spiritual side. That you to regain your position is going to be very difficult, to work your way back into the life that you had before the fall with me. The ground is going to be very difficult. You're going to have to work very hard. But on top of it, the thistles and the weeds and thorns will be, yes, naturally, but also spiritually. Satan is going to be after you. He's going to make life very difficult for you. And it's not going to be an easy life. You are going to be engaged in spiritual warfare. You are going to be engaged in hard, laborious work. Life is going to be a struggle. And to Eve, he said, to Havilah, he says, and I will cause you to have much trouble when you are pregnant. And when you give birth to children, you will have great pain. Then he says, you will greatly desire your husband, but he will rule over you. So this is physically true. This is the physical, the more obvious interpretation. But he's also saying that your position is now you are going to be subordinated to your husband. And for your sin, you are going to, whilst the husband works the field, you are going to have difficulty in childbearing. Now, I have suggested at some point that Haviah's problem, or the reason why she listened to Satan, was because she wanted to have children, but she was not able to conceive immediately. Just like Abraham had to wait 25 years and Isaac had to wait 20 years, Eve also had to wait, but I think she became impatient, and that's why she was susceptible to the overtures of the serpent, which was basically saying that there's an easy way around it. And because of that, and she had been taught by Adam, but Adam had failed in his duty of correcting her. When he saw her talking to the serpent, he should have stopped her, but he didn't. So now she's been put firmly in a position of subordination to her husband. So the son and later the daughter of God, that's Adam and Havilah, the heirs of heaven and earth, whilst on earth were kept physically busy and spiritually upright on their knees, giving both their time and thoughts to God and the earth that they had to work. While we labor for shelter and food, greater effort and weight must be set aside and brought to bear on in our worship and praise. which we do on our knees and in true and sincere service to God, who gave us this life here on earth in the first place, with our eyes and attention fixated on God. In the beginning, his labor was for recreation and pleasure. It was easy, there was no great difficulty, through which he expressed his creativity and artistry. Life was bliss, perfect happiness, great joys, state of spiritual blessedness. Life was as a dream. Here I mean as perfect, it was spiritual. He was happy. Adam was very happy. And Adam was happy, and he was not idle, and was quite happy to work. He was happy with his lot. It was a good, comfortable life that he had. He was a busy man. His whole life was, it was good. But the body of clay also had to be fed, but that was done naturally because of trees were just produce fruit, and he picked them as and when he wanted. When he was kicked out, evicted from the garden, that was a different state of affairs there. The ground was not as fertile, and the plants that were in the garden were not out in the outside Eden and outside the garden. So he had to feed himself. That involved some hard work. We know that Thessalonians say that that there's this law that says anyone who refuses or is unwilling to work shall not eat. He had no choice. He had to work if he had to eat. Although, of course, it was not as hard as it has come now, as it is today. In Genesis 1:26-27, we are now going backwards. Now we are talking about the creative thing, where God says, listen, let us make human beings in our image and likeness. That's in 26. And then in 27, it says, in his image, he made them, reflecting God's nature, character, and representing him in the world. But we also know that whilst he was here, Jesus used to come and visited him. I think it must have been every day or very frequently in the cool of the day. That was a pattern that had been established. So anyway, the whole idea is that he was supposed to reflect. He was created with a capacity to develop a nature and character that represented God, that was like God, and he was supposed to represent God here in the world, on earth. Now, whilst the word image would suggest an external likeness, it does not necessarily have to be so, because we know that God, when he says, I don't judge men by their appearances, so the image here can be likened to the soul and your very nature. So we can say that in Mark 12:16-17, he says, when Jesus says, should we pay taxes, etc., etc., and he says they gave Jesus a coin because he had asked for it, and then they asked them, whose image is this, and the name on the coin. They answered, the religious leaders, that this is Caesar. So he says, give to Caesar the things that are Caesar's, and give to God the things that are God's. They were amazed at this, and then they stopped pestering him. So the other one, which will suggest the physical side of things, because God is spirit, but he can't be seen if he allows you to, but he doesn't. In Exodus 33:2, it says, but you cannot see my face because no one can see me and live, because I think we are basically so unholy. So the image that he's talking about here is his nature. It's you are supposed to reflect and take on his nature and character and represent him here on earth. That your soul is what is supposed to, when people hear you and even see you, they will know that you are of God, you are from God, you represent, you, as Jesus says, if you have seen me, you have seen my Father. And he was not talking about his physical appearance, no, because God is not a man. He's talking about his nature, his character. So here, when you're talking about his image and his, we are talking about his nature and his character, and that he's supposed to represent him here in the world, here on earth. So it refers to man's moral powers and especially to his capacity of attaining unto holiness. Thus far we've focused on the clay side, but I've been drifting more and more to the spiritual side of things. So the vessel, the body, this has now pay attention to the spiritual side. Yes, Adam was put in the Garden of Eden to dress it, and not only to give him a pleasant employment, but to place him in the garden of the Lord necessarily suggests a temple. So the Garden of Eden is actually a temple. This represents the idea of a temple because God used to come and meet him there, in which he could better learn and know God and worship God and offer daily sacrifices of thanksgiving and praise. In John 12:26 it says, "Whoever serves me must follow me, and where I am, my servant also will be. My Father will honor the one who serves me." So here Adam was with God in the garden. And there was no need for angels. It was a relationship between God and man, Adam and God. As far as God is concerned, life is for the true pleasure, which is in the business God calls us to do and employs us. In Genesis 2:7, as God made the man out of clay, and he breathed into him, and man became a living being, an individual complete in body and spirit. In Psalm 43:7, it says, "Bring to me all the people who are mine, whom I have made for my glory, whom I formed and made." In John 4:24 it says, "And God is a spirit, a spiritual being, and those who worship him must worship him in spirit and in truth." In Luke 4:18 it says, "Now this is the work that we are told that we all have to do. We are given work." And this is what Adam was supposed to be doing. But then everything had to be reworked because Adam had failed. He had fallen, so was no longer able to continue with plan A. So the Lord put his spirit in me because he appointed me to preach, to appointed me to proclaim, preach the good news to the poor. He has sent me to tell the captives they are free, to proclaim liberty and the release for the captives, prisoners, and to tell the blind that they can see again. God sent me to free those who have been treated unfairly or oppressed. In Luke 10:41, here we are talking about Martha complaining about how her sister Mary was not helping her with the household chores in preparing food because she was sitting at his feet and she was learning from him. And the Lord answered, "You are worried and upset about many things, but few things are needed, or indeed only one. Mary has chosen what is better, and it will not be taken away from her." So God did not reprimand her. So our purpose here on earth is to do God's work. In Ecclesiastes 5:20 says, "For he will not often consider talking about man, will not often consider the troubled days of his life because God keeps him occupied and focused on the joy of his heart and the tranquility of God, and the tranquility of God indwells him. So when you are doing God's work, you are not going to be worried about life, the other carnal side of life, but more on the spiritual side of things. Now, I just want to, having said this, before we get into part 2, which basically focuses more on the spiritual side and what it means and what is meant for Adam, and how we are supposed to conduct our lives. And of course, in this so far, we've pointed out that the Garden of Eden is the equivalent of paradise, that the New Jerusalem is going to be it's going to be a vast estate, and it's going to be placed where Israel is extending all the way to the Far East, because the mountain, Mount Zion, Jerusalem has to be there because it's also called the New Jerusalem, and it is paradise, the New Jerusalem. And here we are basically talking about the importance of obedience, and I think this will come out more in part 2. But now I just want to make some point out a few things. So we said that Eden was a vast real estate, and I are saying that the New Jerusalem coming down from heaven approximates the vastness of this estate, which is 1,000 by 1,500 by 1,000, 1,500 wide. It's a cube, and 1,500 miles high. It's a cube. The Garden of Eden, as I said, is small in extent, but the plan was that it had the capacity, with the capacity to spread and expand to cover the whole of Eden, its length and its breadth. And as Adam multiplied and effectively extended and consolidated his dominion over the whole estate, it was expected that he would gradually and effectively extend his effective dominion over all the earth. So Genesis in 1:26 was, let us make human beings in our image and likeness. He was supposed to project and represent God here on earth, as he now encroached the rest of the earth where the other humans were. And there's a larger population of humans outside Eden. And they were given into dominion over this whole estate. So Adam was to naturally project the image and likeness of God throughout the whole earth. Adam was given dominion over the whole earth. And see, according to this logic, this would have made God's council or congregation, as in Psalm 82, rather redundant, because remember, in Psalm 82, he's reprimanding the gods for allowing corruption to set in the world. Adam was supposed to have done that. He was supposed to take the knowledge and teach the rest of the population, the other human beings, about God, what he is, who he is, and what he stands for. And he was supposed to project his image to the world, not only to his own offspring, who were supposed to be growing in numbers and filling out populating the whole of Eden before overflowing and taking over and teaching the other nations about God. In Genesis 3:8-9, we know that when he fell, he was now hiding away from God, which is shame because he knew he had sinned. So God would continue to be with the Adamites, later Israel, as they broke the so God was supposed to continue being with the Adamites as they broke the frontiers of Eden and encroached and expanded beyond and deep into all the inhabited regions of the earth, the territories held by the Gentiles, which are the other humans. Now, this role was later now assigned to the kingdom of Israel, to go to the rest of the world and proclaim the good news about God. So he was to start small and grow and expand and encompass the whole world, every square inch of it. This, therefore, presupposes, as I've just said, that there were other people on the earth. And the evidence here is in the case of Cain, when he was kicked out of when he was told that when he was kicked out from where his parents were, and he was told that he had to leave. And then he says, but where he was complaining, and he says, then Cain said to the Lord, the punishment is more than I can stand. Today you have forced me to stop working the ground, and now I must hide from you, from your face, and I must wander around on the earth. And everyone who meets me will kill me. Who are these other people who kill him? When they were, at that point, there were only 4 of them. The Lord said to Cain, no. If anyone kills you, I will punish that person 7 times more. Then the Lord put a mark on Cain, warning anyone who met him not to kill him. So Cain left, and it continues now. This is 16. So Cain went away from the Lord and lived in the land of Nod, east of Eden. Now, you remember when Adam was evicted and forced out of, him and his wife were forced out. It was on the eastern side, the eastern border. So just outside that's where these other people were. And that's where he met his wives. Remember, that's where he met his wife. That is in the case of Cain. So we also notice that a river flowed through Eden and watered the garden. And from there, the river branched out to become 4 riverheads. In Revelation 22, we see that the angel showed me the river of the water of life. It was shining, bright, clear like crystal, and was flowing from the throne of God and the Lamb right down the middle of the street. And it continues in Genesis 2:9, it says, and the Lord God caused every beautiful tree and every tree that was good for food to grow out of the ground. In the middle of the ground, one, we have the tree of life. In Genesis, in Revelation 22, it says, and the tree of life was on each side of the river that flowed down the middle of heaven, which is like Eden, and is said to be better than Eden. It produces fruit 12 times a year. It produces fruit 12 times a year. Once each month, it produces that variety, produces a fruit each month of a different kind. And the leaves of the tree are used for the healing of the nation. I don't know what healing will be required except for the trauma of the people that we have lost along the way, of family. who were not able to make it. Well, I'm merely speculating. And also the tree that gives knowledge. In Eden, we have the tree that gives knowledge of good and evil, which is no longer there. There's no need for it because man has learned experientially good and evil because he succumbed to temptation. And then we know that in Revelation 21:22, it says, I did not see a temple because the Lord God and the Lamb are the city's temple, representing the presence of God was not needed because God's presence is throughout the city, which is basically what was the case in the case of Eden, the Garden of Eden. His presence was there. There was no need for a structure called a temple. So on this note, will we conclude? We conclude part one. The focal point is the sin and the need for obedience in God's kingdom, the utmost importance of obedience. Yes, the other points that we mentioned, that Eden is paradise, like heaven is referred to as paradise, that man had to work on here on earth to sustain his body, but also he has spiritual work to do. And yes, and that there was no need for a temple in the Garden of Eden, as there was no need of a temple. There's no need for a temple in the New Jerusalem. So God has achieved his final result, which is basically people will be with God. Where God is where his people are. And he's come down to earth, to his people here on earth. As we saw that where I am is where you are. So on this note, we conclude part one, and our introspection and meditation is out of Revelation chapter 10, verses 8 to 11. Then I heard the same voice from heaven again saying to me, go and take the open scroll that is in the hand of the angel that is standing on the sea and on the land. So I went to the angel and told him to give me the small scroll, and he said to me, take the scroll and eat it. A symbol of internalizing the word. It will be sour, bitter in your stomach because it is a message of judgment, but in your mouth it will be as sweet as honey because it is God's word and because it brings salvation and vindication to his people. So I took the small scroll from the angel's hand and ate it. In my mouth it tasted sweet as honey, but after I ate it, it was sour, bitter as in my stomach. Then I was told, you must prophesy again about many peoples, nations, languages, and kings. Yes, you must share the word you have just received. Another translation puts it this way. Then some voices said, keep on telling what will happen to the people of many nations, races, and languages, and also to kings. Our benediction comes out of Numbers chapter 6, verses 22 to 27. The Lord said to Moses, tell Aaron and his sons, this is how you should bless the Israelites. Say to them, may the Lord bless you, and may the Lord keep you, may the Lord guard you. May the Lord show you his kindness, make his face shine upon you, and have mercy on you. May the Lord be gracious to you. May the Lord watch over you, lift his face, presence, countenance upon you, and give you peace. So Aaron and his sons will bless the Israelites with my name, and I will bless them. Thank you, and may God bless you all.